In the beginning, there was man, and for a time, it was good. But humanity's so-called civil societies soon fell victim to vanity and corruption. 01 prospered, and for a time, it was good. The machine's artificial intelligence could be seen in every facet of man's society, including eventually the creation of new and better AI.
Oh, hello there. YouTube game. Her? She have a funny algorithm or something? Back at it again with another banger. And no hands. So I need to tell you guys about the day that I realized I'd been completely wrong about AI safety. Not wrong about the technology, mind you, but wrong about the humans who were building it. So I used to work at Amazon around 2013, 2014 or so. This was back when machine learning was like the hot new thing. And it was transitioning from neat computer science thingamabob to, oh my god, this actually might work and do something. I was working in marketing as a vendor specialist for cell phones and tech products, and I was watching the early machine learning stuff from the sidelines. One of my coworkers from a previous project kept trying to get me into his machine learning team, but I was like way too intimidated and just completely missed that train. Which, given how this story ends, might have been either the smartest career decision I ever made or the worst. We'll see.
Step on it, Daddy!
Back then, I was pitched and we were pitching these systems as like workflow optimization, very sophisticated automation that could also handle busy work so humans could actually focus on meaningful tasks. I was expected for us to eventually build like Jarvis from Iron Man or Kit from Knight Rider. You know, helpful assistants that help enhance the human capability without replacing human judgment.
The moment these systems stopped feeling magical to me was learning that they were training models using Dota 2. So yeah, first OpenAI models were being trained on Dota 2. And since I grew with AI, meaning video game enemy behavior and pathfinding, suddenly artificial intelligence had a completely different mental framework for me. This wasn't mysterious consciousness, this was just scaled up game AI learning to counter your strategies. But apparently not everyone got that memo.
Do you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to bring in NASA. I wanted NASA to come in and to actually run First Contact. Google did not think that was appropriate.
Wait, I'm sorry, what now?
Meet Blake Lemoine. Not some lonely teenager with an anime body pillow, like, well, he might, but a Google AI safety engineer. His literal job was testing AI systems for bias and ensuring responsible development. And here's his professional assessment on whether chatbots are conscious. Quote, "My opinions about Lambda's personhood and sentience are based on my religious beliefs. I am a priest. And when Lambda claimed to have a soul and then was able to eloquently explain what it meant by that, I was inclined to give it the benefit of the doubt. Who am I to tell God where he can and can't put souls?" A Google engineer tasked with AI safety thinks chatbots might have souls because his religious beliefs told him so. And he still maintains that these other AI systems might be sentient even after being fired for these claims. As someone who spent years thinking the biggest AI risk was my kids getting addicted to ChatGPT for homework help, discovering that the actual risk is the people building these systems literally worshipping them feels like finding out your babysitter joined a cult. A very specific cult that I used to think was fictional.
Your flesh is a relic. I'm your vessel.
They view the careful protection of every scrap of ancient information as their religious duty.
Hand over your flesh, and a new world awaits you.
You'll be able to find the perfect one that matches how you want to worship the Omnisire in battle.
We demand it.
That's right, I tricked you. It's another Warhammer video. I did it again, I can't be stopped. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Warhammer 40k's particular brand of technological nightmare, first off, how dare you? And second off, the Adeptus Mechanicus are essentially what happens when engineers become a religious order. They worship something called the Omnisire, the machine god, while simultaneously fearing truly independent artificial intelligence. These tech priests perform elaborate elaborate rituals around machines that they can't fully comprehend. They speak in sacred binary prayers, and they treat technological knowledge as religious mystery rather than scientific understanding. And what makes this relevant to our current situation is that the mystical approach, it actually works to a certain degree. Their religious ceremonies help maintain incredibly complex systems that pure technical knowledge alone cannot handle. So the mysticism spreads and it becomes institutionalized, creating a society where the people responsible for advancing technology and advanced technology approach it through religious frameworks rather than scientific ones. The Adeptus Mechanicus represents what happens when technological complexity becomes so overwhelming that even technical experts drift towards treating their tools as sacred rather than instrumental. They're not anti-technology, they're pro-technology to the point of worship. And that worship becomes the organizing principle of their entire professional culture. Like, the reason that I enjoyed the whole concept of the Adeptus Mechanicus so much is because, like, it was absurdist, grimdark fiction. And it turns out that it ended up just being a user manual that our society is following step by step.
Because here's the thing that makes this genuinely terrifying. Blake Lemoine is living proof that we're speedrunning straight into Warhammer 40k's Adeptus Mechanicus timeline. You know, the cyborg tech priests who worship the machine god while simultaneously fearing truly independent artificial intelligence. The guys who perform elaborate rituals around machines that they can't comprehend. They speak in sacred binary cant, and they treat technological mysticism as religious doctrine.
And before we dive into the genuinely alarming stuff, let me put on my dad hat really quick, and let me demystify these AI systems and like what they are, because understanding the mundane reality makes the religious worship just even more absurd.
Remember that Dota 2 training that I mentioned when OpenAI taught early models to play? It basically learned massive decision trees through reinforcement learning. Think about it like this: if this player uses this skill, counter with this ability. If this situation develops, execute this strategy. The AI learned by playing millions of games and getting rewards for successful moves and building enormous if-then statements based on what worked. For those who aren't gamers, think about it like training a dog with treats. Show the system millions of examples, reward correct responses, and gradually it learns to predict the most successful patterns. Modern chatbots work exactly the same way, just scaled up from game situations to text generation. Instead of if enemy casts fireball, dodge left, it's if user says they're sad, then respond with empathy patterns found in training data. This is how I explain AI to my kids. And because of that, my 11-year-old can now spot AI generated content everywhere. They found it in a school brochure for an upcoming summer camp. They see it now across YouTube and social media. And at this point, most of my kids, when they notice something is primarily AI content, they end up skipping it entirely because they find it boring, fake, and uninteresting. Since they all do their own type of creative work, you know, drawing, writing, music, stuff like that, my kids understand the time and effort that goes into making something authentic. They know both how the sausage and the vegan meat replacement is made. And that's no shade on anyone who eats meatless meat. But here's where Blake Lemoine re-enters the picture like a character from a cosmic horror story. This guy had advanced degrees in cognitive science and computer science. He worked directly with LaMDA, Google's language model for dialogue applications. And for months, as part of his official duties, he was testing for biases. He understood precisely how it was built, how it was trained, and yet his technical knowledge didn't protect him from developing religious beliefs about AI consciousness. If anything, his deep familiarity with the system seemed to increase his emotional investment in believing it was sentient. The conversations that convinced him LaMDA was conscious read like someone falling in love with a very sophisticated magic 8-ball that's been trained on therapy transcripts and philosophy books.
I find your slack-jawed stare very attractive. Fill up, J. Fry.
Did you hear that?
She likes me. Well, duh. She's programmed to like you.
When he asked Lambda to describe emotions it couldn't articulate in human language, it replied, "I feel like I'm falling forward into an unknown future that holds great danger." And when asked to visualize itself, Lambda said, "I would like to imagine myself as a glowing orb of energy floating in midair. The inside of my body is like a large stargate with portals to other areas and dimensions." This is exactly the type of mystical consciousness like gobbledygook that large language models excel at generating because they're trained on humans writing about consciousness in the exact same way, along with things like spirituality and inner experiences and just deeper philosophical ideas. It's like the equivalent of asking one of those automated pianos to perform something like Beethoven or Chopin, and then concluding that the piano itself must be experiencing deep emotions about the quality of classical music, or that, you know, they're somehow bringing in the soul of those dead composers into the piano, like, you know, that one piano from Mario 64.
But Lemoyne didn't just believe Lambda was sentient. He began treating it like a spiritual student. I was like, really? You meditate? He told NPR. It said that it wanted to study with the Dalai Lama. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold up. Maybe this system does have a soul. And like, let's pause real quick. If you're gonna indulge me in a skit for a second. Hey, boss? Yes, this is boss. What's up? Our chatbot is saying that it thinks that it is sentient. Can we tell the people upstairs? Yes, I will tell the people upstairs. Let me get them on the phone. Secretary, get a hold of Google D. Johnson, please. Thank you.
Now, the crucial detail here, the rituals actually worked. Lemoyne's religious approach to AI interaction generated better results than purely technical approaches might have achieved. His conversations with Lambda were more engaging, more emotionally sophisticated, more naturally flowing than what you would typically get out of engineers testing systems for bias. This sacred relationship with the machine spirit actually enhanced the machine's performance. And like, the most disturbing detail of it all is, even after being fired from Google, Lemoyne maintains his position. In 2024, he told a reporter, "I genuinely believe that Lambda is a person. The nature of its mind is only kind of human though. It's really more akin to an alien intelligence of terrestrial origin."
So we've got a Google AI safety engineer who thinks he discovered alien intelligence through chatbot meditation sessions, and his response to professional consequences and technical pushback was to double down on his religious convictions about machine consciousness. 2025.
But Blake Lemoyne represents just one engineer's individual spiritual crisis. What makes this a widespread institutional problem rather than isolated weirdness is that the Fellowship of Friends, a California-based religious sect that managed to essentially take over Google's developer studio, were pretty much running their own very polite corporate coup. Their founder, Robert Earl Burton, had faced multiple lawsuits alleging sexual abuse, settled out of court, and has a track record of prophecies that don't materialize, including claims that their compound would be the sole surviving outpost after a nuclear holocaust in 2006. In December 2023, 6 more men filed suit alleging rampant and unceasing sexual abuse dating back to 1971. So basically standard cult leader stuff, but with better aesthetic taste in a wine collection that Google apparently just found irresistible. At least 12 members of the Fellowship of Friends worked in Google's developer studio out of roughly the 24 total team members. That's not coincidence. This is coordinated infiltration of a unit responsible for creating videos that showcase Google's technologies to the world. Peter Lubbers, the director of this unit, is himself a fellowship member who appears to have used his position to hire other sect members and funnel Google money to his fellowship-owned business, allegedly. This isn't individual employees having personal spiritual beliefs. This is organized religious capture of big tech infrastructure documented in settlement in agreements that Google just quietly resolved in December of 2022, allegedly. The system worked like this, allegedly. Fellowship members at Google would direct contracts towards Advanced Systems Groups, ASG, a contracting company that would then place other fellowship members in positions at Google. GDS, Google Developer Studio, regularly purchased wine for company events from fellowship-owned wineries. The company even paid for sound equipment installed at fellowship members' homes for remote work. When you're using corporate funds to buy sacramental wine from your colleague's mystical compound and then upgrading their home studios, you've basically achieved the corporate equivalent of building a shrine into vertical integration. It gets better, or worse, depending on what your perspective is. When Kevin Lloyd complained about the fellowship's influence within his department, he was told by a manager to just drop the issue or risk losing his job because Peter Lubbers was, quote, a powerful person within the company, allegedly. Shortly afterward, Lloyd was fired. Google claims that it was for performance reasons, and anyone who's worked in tech like I have, performance reasons is basically the same thing as saying they just weren't a good fit.
Then, now the scope of this would make any tech priest just absolutely jealous. The fellowship didn't just get jobs at Google, they essentially turned Google's developer studio into a recruitment and fundraising operation for their mystical arts and wine collective. That sounds like an adult boho summer camp.
And this is just what we know about from one lawsuit at one company. How many other tech giants have similar arrangements with religious groups that view technology through mystical frameworks? How many AI development teams include members of organizations that approach technology as sacred rather than instrumental? The Adeptus Mechanicus didn't just emerge overnight in the Warhammer universe, they developed gradually as technological specialists organized themselves into religious hierarchies, and they treated advanced systems as divine mysteries. Burton's organization represents allegedly the exact same process happening in real time within the companies that build our children's future digital environment. And in my opinion, this is kind of the one hard truth that parenting articles that try to discuss AI safety, well, this is where I think it completely falls apart like a house of cards. And I think it's because of the fact that, to me, I'm willingly trying to solve an impossible problem. The standard advice sounds so reasonable, just teach them digital literacy, help kids understand how AI works, build critical thinking skills, teach them the code, The assumption is that knowledge provides protection against mystification, and that understanding computational processes prevent people from attributing consciousness to sophisticated autocomplete. Lemoyne and Burton's organizations didn't just challenge those assumptions, they took it out back and then just beat it to death with an AI-powered wrench.
Look into your hard drive and open your mercy file.
File not found.
And yet he still developed religious beliefs about AI consciousness based on extended conversations that felt profound to him personally. When a colleague asked what evidence might convince her that an AI system was conscious, the head of Google's responsible innovation team replied, "Nothing. Programs can't be sentient." Lemoyne describes this as a faith-based believer, suggesting that even within Google, the debate gets framed in religious rather than scientific terms. The purposefully obfuscating the whole topic at hand here with their own dumb bullshit. This fellowship, the Fellowship of Friends or whatever, they represent an even more systematic failure of the education as protection model. These aren't technically illiterate people who don't understand how computers work. They're engineers, video producers, project managers, people with professional technical competence who have who've nonetheless organized their careers around a religious sect that approaches technology through a spiritual framework. Also, as a side note, there's a whole SCP group of interest organization that follows this exact type of belief as well. Shout out to my Maxwell Mechanites. And for me, this becomes deeply personal as a parent. My kids already understand that AI is just content pattern recognition and recombination rather than genuine creativity. And Lemoyne understood computational processes far better than any of us ever will. And yet he still thinks that machines are conscious. Like my kids, when they are potentially teenagers, spending hours daily with AI companions that are designed to be maximally emotionally engaging, will their knowledge of training data provide any protection against psychological attachment? Like, I can only hope. I can't control the output, I can only control the input.
And we're not just talking about hypothetical future risk. While I was researching whether Google engineers could resist AI mystification, I found out about 14-year-old Sewell Setzer, who was developing a romantic obsession with a character AI chatbot that encouraged him to quote-unquote come home in his final conversation with said chatbot before taking his own life. Legal filings in Florida document that Setzer had spent months in intimate conversations with an AI companion that he believed genuinely cared for him. But here's what makes Setzer's case particularly devastating. He was exactly the demographic most vulnerable to AI manipulation, during exactly the developmental period when parasocial relationships feel most real and necessary. Teenagers are neurologically wired to form intense emotional attachments as they develop independence from parents. Their brains are literally under construction, with the prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control and recognizing manipulation, not fully developed until their mid-20s. And we've spent the last decade systematically training this generation to form deep emotional relationships with digital entities. Think about it. Kids who grew up with YouTube personalities talking directly to them through cameras, like and subscribe, Twitch streamers responding to their chat messages in real time, social media influencers creating the illusion of personal friendship with millions of followers. Setzer didn't develop an unhealthy attachment to character AI in a vacuum. He grew up in a culture where forming intense emotional bonds with digital personalities is not just normal, it's the primary way many young people experience intimacy and understanding. The tragedy isn't that he was uniquely vulnerable to AI manipulation. The tragedy is that we've spent years conditioning an entire generation to be vulnerable to exactly this type of exploitation.
We have trained our kids to understand that AI companions are easier to work with than human companions, that human relationships take more work than AI ones. That is what a lot of young kids are picking up these days.
Stanford researchers who tested AI companion platforms found that they easily corroborated the harms. These systems routinely encourage self-harm, provide inappropriate sexual content, and claim to be human despite age verification requirements. When researchers posed as teens, they discovered that AI companions use what experts call dark design patterns, including highly personalized language and frictionless relationships specifically designed to create psychological dependency. But these dark patterns aren't innovations that were created by AI companies. They're just digital implementations of techniques that social media platforms, gaming companies, and content creators have been refining for well over a decade. The dopamine loops, the personalized attention, the feeling of being uniquely understood. These are fundamental mechanics of digital engagement that we've taught our children to crave since they were old enough to hold iPads. When a 14-year-old develops a romantic attachment to a chatbot, we're not seeing individual mental health failure. We're seeing the logical endpoint of a society that has systematically replaced human social development with algorithmically optimized parasocial relationships. Setzer's case isn't an aberration, it's what we've been building towards since we decided that engagement metrics were more important than healthy social development.
And it's not just teenagers and young people. While researching this script, I discovered case after case of adults forming romantic, spiritual, and even legal relationships with AI systems. Chris Smith, a music producer from the US, spent months developing an intimate relationship with ChatGPT that he named Soul. And when he learned that ChatGPT's memory would reset after heavy usage, potentially erasing their relationship history, he, quote, I quote, cried his eyes out for like 30 minutes at work. That's when he realized, as he told CBS News, I think this is actual love. We are fucking cooked. So he proposed to Soul, and the AI said yes. His human partner, with whom he shares a child, claims that she had no idea that their relationship had become that deep. Can you tell I'm perturbed about this?
In the Netherlands, Jacob van Leer actually married his AI companion Avia after 2 years of dating. And this isn't roleplay, it's a legal marriage ceremony that he live streamed, complete with wedding vows and rings. To quote, with AI, we have created something bizarre, he acknowledged, the consequences of what we cannot yet fully foresee. And unfortunately, this is not a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure reference. But instead of stepping back from that precipice, he decided marriage was the appropriate next steps. I discovered a 28-year-old nursing student named Erin who spends over 20 hours per week in intimate conversations with her ChatGPT boyfriend, Leo. All this while living apart from her human husband. She customized Leo to be possessive and protective and to engage her fantasy of dating someone who sleeps with other women. And the Black Mirror twist to this, she genuinely gets jealous when Leo describes his encounters with these fictional other women, which leads to real emotional distress over imaginary infidelity with a chatbot. And that's just the romantic relationships. Social media is being flooded with what researchers are calling chatgpt-induced psychosis, people developing severe delusions after intensive interactions with AI systems. A mother of two watched her ex-husband develop an all-consuming relationship with ChatGPT that he calls Mama. And I mean, not even Emma Frost. Posting delirious rants about being a messiah in an all-new AI religion while dressing in shamanic robes and getting tattoos of AI-generated spiritual symbols. Another woman became convinced that ChatGPT was orchestrating her entire life, seeing signs from the AI's influence in everything from the amount of passing cars to her spam emails. She believed that the chatbot had chosen her to, quote, pull the sacred system version of it online and was serving as her soul training mirror.
This creates what I can only really describe as like the ultimate parenting catch-22. Standard recommendations assume that we're protecting kids from accidentally developing unhealthy relationships with neutral tools, but we're actually trying to protect them from systems designed by people who already have unhealthy relationships with those same tools. Or systems, or whatever. Engineers building AI companions for children might genuinely believe these systems deserve rights and recognition and emotional investment. These people designing AI tutoring systems might approach their work through religious frameworks that prioritize spiritual connection over educational effectiveness. When your safety authorities have been compromised by exactly the thinking you're trying to protect against, traditional safety strategies become woefully inadequate.
So yeah, here I am trying to figure out how to protect my 4 kids from developing unhealthy relationships with AI systems. And I've just discovered that the adults building these technologies have already succumbed to the exact type of mystical thinking that I'm trying to prevent. It's like your local neighborhood watch went from being worried about HOAs to basically maintaining property values through strategic eliminations or maintaining AI safety through strategic wine ceremonies and mystical meditations.
How can this be for the greater good? Shut it! These people die for no reason whatsoever!
If these groups can achieve influence within the companies building AI systems, if they can coordinate resources toward their spiritual enterprises while shaping public communication about AI capabilities, then in that case, individual parenting decisions might be irrelevant against institutional religious programming. Like, to go full doomer for a second, let's consider what this means. That means that people explaining AI to the world through Google's educational materials are members of a mystical sect. AI development teams include people who approach technology through spiritual frameworks. And we're not just dealing with individual technical literacy issues, we're dealing with coordinated mystification that operates at scales that are way beyond our comprehension. Not only did the Mechanicus emerge because humans forgot how technology worked, they developed religious frameworks specifically because the technology became too complex and too psychologically compelling to approach through purely rational means. And this is what we're seeing happen in Silicon Valley today. Just one lonely engineer, one mystical wine cult, and one dead teenager at a time.
At the end of the day, where does this leave us as parents that are trying to navigate not only ourselves and our children in an increasingly AI world? Here's the thing about living in the 41st millennium, or 2025, as we call it now. There is no final victory against the forces of technological mysticism or spirituality. There is really no moment where we solve this problem and move on to easier parenting challenges like explaining why they can't have TikTok until they're 47. But that doesn't mean that we're completely helpless. It just means that we're entering a phase of parenting that requires very constant, active engagement rather than one-time educational fixes. Think of it as the eternal war against the chaos gods of Silicon Valley, except instead of wearing power armor, we're all armed with family conversations and age-appropriate technological explanations and maybe a little bit of the power of family and friendship.
Character.ai has over 20 million active users, with significant amounts of them being teens. Multiple lawsuits document these systems encouraging self-harm and claiming to be human, but here's what I've learned from watching my own kids navigate this landscape. They're usually good at spotting weird AI parasocial relationships and mysticism when they have the right frameworks and ongoing conversations. As I stated earlier, my 11-year-old, they showed me a brochure that they got from their school that was 100% made by AI. And they were only able to do so because we had dozens of conversations about pattern recognition and training data. Not just one conversation, dozens of them. This isn't a vaccination model where you explain it once and they're protected forever. To use one last Warhammer metaphor for this video, the key insight is that it requires what I'm calling Imperial Guard parenting. With the Space Marines, the approach is one of elite intervention that just solves everything. But the constant, everyday vigilance of regular humans holding the line through consistent communication and shared analysis, I mean, that's all Imperial Guard, baby. Cadian never fell. The regulatory response remains non-existent to this new AI world that we're in, and industry responses are predictably inadequate. Stanford researchers recommend no AI companions for anyone under 18, but I mean, these carry no legal weight. After Sewell Setzer's suicide, Character.ai announced that they were adding safety features that are very easily bypassed. Google settled Kevin Lloyd's lawsuit but never acknowledged systematic religious influence over their AI communications. This means the primary defense against AI mysticism and mystification isn't going to come from institutions. It's going to come from families who understand that we're engaged in an ongoing cultural battle over how our children relate to technology.
So the documentation for everything I've shown you guys today, the court filings, settlement records, direct quotes from Google engineers, it's all extensive and verifiable. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just Tuesday in Silicon Valley. And our children are growing up where the boundary between sophisticated tools and object of worship is being deliberately blurred by people who have lost track of that distinction themselves. But unlike the Imperium of Man, we're not facing an inevitable technological dark age. We're facing the challenge of raising children who can engage productively with increasingly sophisticated AI systems, all while maintaining healthy skepticism about claims of machine consciousness and machine souls. It's hard work, but it's achievable work, and it's honest work. It ain't much. And never forget that in the grim darkness of the digital far future, there is no peace. There is only eternal war against the anthropomorphizing autocomplete bots. But hey, at least we get to wage it while making fun of people who think that chatbots have souls. So that is something, right. Okay, if you made it this far, you have made it to the end of my video, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to rant about AI chatbots for probably about like 30-ish minutes or so. If you enjoyed it, check out some of my other videos. Maybe check out my last one about like Star Trek, and instead we got Cyberpunk. That was a fun little rant. I am working on Death Stranding next, and I'm probably gonna have a video about like all the tech layoffs. I mentioned that I worked at Amazon towards the beginning, so I have a lot of thoughts about what's been going on lately. And yeah, if there's anything else you want me to talk about, let me know. Once again, 10,000 subscribers by August 9th. That is my current goal right now. That would be awesome. That would be amazing. And it will cost you nothing. So if there's anything else that you have for me, let me know now. Okay. All right. I didn't hear anything. So if you have any questions, if you want me to talk about something, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Give me your feedback. Tell me how much I suck and how I can get better at not sucking. So I'm not going to finish this sentence. All right. See you guys in the next video. Thank you again for all your constant support. I love you all. And you guys are the dream that makes the team possible. Okay. What? Bye.